Ooh. Hey, I'm Reese, and I don't know, I want to talk about Sonnet 1 today. Nothing highbrow here. This is low-hanging Shakespeare. So I'm sure a lot of us remember in 2020 when we first went into lockdown for COVID, how Sir Patrick Stewart read us a poem every day. He read the entirety of Shakespeare's sonnets, and I was inspired by that. It's really great to hear them read out loud, but I think it's even better if we understand them. And a lot of times, I don't understand what is going on in one of Shakespeare's sonnets, so I thought, let's explore all of them together. I'm going to be using my knowledge of Shakespeare from just as being an actor and a nerd, but I'm going to be using the Arden Shakespeare's sonnets. I also have a bookshelf over here entirely dedicated to Shakespeare works, Shakespeare studies, and then some Renaissance and medieval studies, and then there's a lot of mythology on that shelf too. So if something comes up that I don't feel like Googling, and looking in a book seems like the preferable way, I have like 1/92 of a library. It's kind of a cold read. I haven't looked at this sonnet in a while. I have read it. I do know a little bit about it, but I did no preparation at all for this video. We are going to figure this bitch out together. First things first, let's read the sonnet. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die, but as the riper should by time decrease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies, thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald to the gaudy spring, within thine own bud buriest thy content, and tender churl makest waste in niggarding. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. Ooh, ominous. Shall we break it down line by line? Let's do that. Let's figure out what all these lines mean. From fairest creatures, we desire increase. So we know that we desire increase. We know that means that we want more of something. But what are the fairest creatures? The fairest creatures in my mind are just any living thing that's beautiful. Now that statement might be amended as we go through the sonnet, but my initial impression is we're talking about just general creatures. Could be human, could be animal, could be flower, could be are there fungi? What other kind of fair creatures are there? Let's write in our own words. I'm going to use my words. Feel free to steal them. I don't care. Plagiarism, whatever. No, I'm going to say we want more from beautiful creatures. More of what? I don't know. We'll figure that out in a minute. You might be confused about the word fairest. In modern language, we use the word fair to mean like equal, but in Shakespeare's day, fair would have meant beautiful. So we're saying that from the most beautiful creatures, we want more of something. That thereby beauty's rose might never die. Okay, we're talking about a rose. Is it an actual rose? Probably not. We're talking about beauty's rose. We're talking about maybe the rosy cheeks of someone who's beautiful, maybe like blush, maybe even makeup. In modern day, maybe, yeah, a person wearing makeup could be that could be beauty's rose. It could just mean liveliness or life or the joie de vivre, whatever. We want more from beautiful creatures so that the rosy cheeks of this beautiful person could go on forever. So it could be just generic, like, my cat's pretty, your cat's pretty. Let's get our pretty cats together and overpopulate the planet with really pretty cats. Have your pets spayed or neutered. But as the riper should by time decrease. Okay, this I think is probably the first line to me that kind of gives me pause. It makes me kind of question what I'm actually reading. Time decrease, meaning obviously that as time goes on, the beauty and the ripeness will fade. His tender air might bear his memory. Okay. Here I think is the first line where we're talking about human attraction. Because we have a tender heir. We have someone who's inheriting something. What are they inheriting? The beauty from the parent. So we're saying that as time goes on and beauty fades, your children or your heir will look like you when you were young. And so that beauty's rose that lived in your cheeks when you were young, your child is going to have that in your memory, basically. How can we condense that into a single sentence? I don't know. I'm going to say his kid might look like him. I think also it's interesting that right now we're using he, him pronouns. So if Shakespeare is writing this as himself, maybe he's concerned about his own youthfulness dying. Or maybe he's talking to the general public, any person who feels like their beauty might be fading. This line is the first one that makes me go, who are we talking to here? We're obviously talking about humans because we've got heirs and memory, but is he talking to himself? Is he worried about his own existence and his own future? Or is this general advice to the public? But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes. Now we're getting accusatory. So just in the last sentence, we had his child can bear his memory. Now we're saying, but something is wrong with you. Little history on thee and thou. Thee and thou used to be the singular form of you. You would have been plural, like modern day y'all or yous guys. If you were talking to one person who you were familiar with, you would use thee or thou. You could still use you with one person, but it was more of a formal meaning. So this is somebody that Shakespeare knows, one person, contracted to thine own bright eyes. So we're getting accusatory, but we're also getting complimentary. We've got bright eyes here. I think that's a nice thing to say. Contracted, like signed a contract with or in league with, only interested in maybe. But you, who is obsessed, I'm going to say obsessed with your own looks, maybe, feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel. Feedst. That's a good word. Feedst. What is self-substantial? What's another word for fuel? Gas. This one is so hard to put into a single sentence in my own words. We've got a whole metaphor here. Feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel. We are feeding a flame, and what do you use to feed a flame? You use fuel. We are talking about our energy, maybe, with the flame, or our vibrance, our vitality, our interest, our livelihood, our liveliness. We are feeding that fire with our own substance. Is that gross? That might be gross. So you are obsessed with how you look as yourself. You are obsessed with your own looks, and you kind of get off on yourself. I think maybe Shakespeare used the best words here. You get more lively with your own self as inspiration. Let's go with that. Making a famine where abundance lies. Okay. Because you are so beautiful, but the way you're only thinking about yourself makes you less beautiful. So now there is an emptiness in your inner beauty where your outer beauty shows that you should have an abundance there. Say your beauty seems less. Thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. You're only hurting yourself. Excuse me, I need a little more wine. This will never be coffee. You're kind of your own worst enemy here, and you're doing a lot of harm to yourself. You're mean to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament. I love the word ornament. Christmas trees are just trees until you put ornaments on them. This word now, I think that's a pretty key word here. You, who at this time is young and hot, and only herald to the gaudy spring. What else happens in springtime? It's not just flowers blooming, it's when all the animals are popping out babies. I should link that song. It's one of my favorites. About the outdoor fucking. Love that one. And only person who can create seems like a decent enough approximation. Within thine own bud buryest thy content. Content. This line is another one that's maybe a little naughty, and I like it. So if we're talking about a bud, we're probably talking about beauty's rose, like a rosebud. And you're burying your happiness. So you are within yourself keeping your own happiness. You don't have an external factor into which you could dump your content. Now there's another way to read this word content, and that is content. Something that you hold inside. You're not sharing what's inside. How many times have we talked about flowers in springtime? Things that require seeds. Content. Seeds. This cat. One way to rewrite this line would be, you are only happy by yourself. Another way to rewrite this line is, you are a wanker. Let's go with the first one for now. You're only happy by yourself. And tender churl, mixed waste in niggarding. First, let's address the elephant in the room. That last word, Niggard, niggard. It means stingy. According to etymonline.com, which is my go-to for any etymology questions ever about English, it might come from Old Norse, because they had the word I don't even know how to pronounce it. HNO with a slash double GR, which meant stingy. A lot of people in modern productions will strike the line, but in Shakespeare's works, you'll come across it quite a lot. Churl just means kid, youth, little bitch. I don't think we're talking about a child. We're talking about an adult of procreation age. The churl here might be just patronizing. And tender child, young, soft child. You are being wasteful by not giving to others. So now that the accusations are over, let's look at the final couplet at the bottom. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. You know, pity everyone in the world. I can't put this another way. You pity the world. You feel sorry for the people of the world. I think that's a command. It seems like in this couplet we're getting options. And that first option is feel bad for us or be a glutton. A glutton being one who takes everything for themselves and gives nothing back to anybody. Eat the world's due by the grave and thee. It seems to me like the world's due is the tender air mentioned in the first 4 lines. You owe it to the world to continue your beauty. But if you eat that, what does that mean? We're going to keep it clean for now. So feel sorry for the world and give us the children you owe us, or be stingy to withhold and die alone. Sad face. So I don't know what else there is to say about this sonnet. I mean, we're obviously talking about springtime and buds and seeds and growing and creating new life. You can see why the first several sonnets are called procreation sonnets, because I think the thesis of this sonnet could be something like, you're too hot to not have babies. Stop being selfish. Which, is not a message that would really fly in today's climate. Because personally, I can't even keep this mint plant alive back here. Like, I can't imagine. I'm hot, so let's have babies. No. I didn't even feed myself today. Hashtag millennial problems. I want to read through this like 6 more times and pick out all of my favorite words and find all the metaphors and talk about why they're metaphorical. I will spare you. I'll read it one more time, and I'm gonna kind of, as I'm reading, explore the syllabic emphases. I think I have a good enough understanding to read it through again and convey some kind of meaning. You can be the judge of that, though. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time decrease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies. thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald of the gaudy spring, within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl makes waste in niggarding. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. And with that, I think we've just really destroyed Sonnet 1. So let me know in the comments, or somehow send me a pigeon with your comments with things that I missed. Guaranteed there's something I missed in here. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Was it as romantic as you thought it would be? Let's have a discourse. Thank you so much for joining me and indulging me in my Shakespeare obsession. I will see you next week when we will break down Sonnet 2. In the meantime, stay nasty. God, how many of these are there? 154. It's not enough wine in the world.